At Century Arms, we're committed to supporting your freedom, your rights, and your way of life. With generations of craftsmanship and innovation, we proudly provide firearms that embody the spirit of liberty. Introducing the new Sharp Brothers MB-47 rifle, designed for precision, built for strength, and ready for anything. Whether you're on the range or defending what matters most, the MB-47 rifle is where generation meets innovation. For more information, visit us at centuryarms.com now.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. You got to belly up to the bar. We've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Snowball is going to be your bartender tonight. Pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is in fact lighted to my left, your right. And what that means is you're probably listening to SHRmedia.com right now, which is good. But if you want to watch the show, because I'm broadcasting it live right now on the SHR Media Facebook page, go to the SHR Media Facebook page, insert that into your favorite search engine. You can watch the show live right now. Even as I speak, we don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the saloon. Nothing is sacred. Speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress. Tonight, it's Tuesday, the year of our Lord March 13th, 2018, 2018. We have a very special guest tonight. One that I have not had on the saloon before. And I said some time ago that I want to have eventually everyone on the SHR Media Network on my show. And there have been some exceptions. I'm trying to get Jeff Dunitz, for example, back on the show. I'm hoping to get him next Thursday, not this coming Thursday, next Thursday, next week. I'm hoping to get Melanie Collette back next Tuesday night, not obviously tonight, next Tuesday night, but in a very special, and this is humongous. I am really, really happy that tonight we're going to have the right guy himself, the Reverend Ralph J. Chittams, Sr., on tonight on the show. With luck, cross fingers, phalanges, and eyes. Did your mother ever tell you, son, daughter, don't cross your eyes, because if you do, they'll stay crossed forever? Mine did. And so, hence, I never crossed my eyes. Or did you have that wacky kid in class who had one eye that could look that way, and like, who the heck was the character actor? John Elam. He could look one way, and then he had an eyeball that looked like all that way. Dude was like a chameleon. Mark Rice was his name. He went to Pope Avenue School. Absolute, complete control of his eye-billy balls. Wow, an amazing kind of guy. Hey, welcome to everybody in chat. The Reverend Ralph is in chat himself. Welcome to you, sir. I see Mike is in chat. I see the Cynic Who Travels is in chat. Good to see. Oh, Whiskey Dale. Good to see you in chat as well. And Mary Brockman is chat. Of course. Who do we have calling in? We have the one person that I hoped would call in tonight. And, wow, I am quite honored to do it. But like I said, and I didn't quite get the opportunity to finish, in the continuing process of trying to have every SHR Network host on my show, cross-promotion, if you will, because, after all, if we can't promote each other on SHR, then what can we do? I'm introducing Pastor and Reverend Ralph J. Chittams Sr. to the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Now, in terms of his CV, shall we say, Reverend Chittams, I hope everyone is sitting down. Reverend Chittams is a graduate of Howard University. He took his BA in political science. Graduate of the Maple Springs Baptist Bible College and Seminary. He took his Master of Arts in Biblical Studies. And the Liberty Baptist Theological Seminary, where he took his MD Master of Divinity. He was born and raised in New York City. New York City! He has been active in Republican Party politics since 1988. And he's a former senior vice chairman of the Washington, D.C. GOP. Now, Reverend Chittams is well-versed in media, having spoken at key press conferences at the National Press Club and other seminal events on Capitol Hill and nationwide, of course. Ralph hosts his own daily internet show right here, The Right Guys, on SHR Media. He's a regular contributor on News One Now with Roland Martin, Lion Chasers with Lonnie Poindexter. Now, you can read his commentaries. They can be found on urbanfamilytalk.com and sonsoflibertymedia.com. And finally, he is the principal at Black Elephant Consultants LLC. And I'm sure you'll get that immediately. BEC, though, was created to address the chasm between the burgeoning black Christian conservative movement, seeking to protect and defend their constitutional rights. Members of that community seeking elected office, public officials who enact legislation affecting those liberties, and the methodology, mechanisms, and inner workings of public policy and political process. Okay, so that's a mouthful, all right? Essentially, it means that, Reverend Chittams is an obvious underachiever with burgeoning time on his hands, which is why he's here with us tonight. So, good evening and welcome to the saloon, Reverend Chittams. May I call you Ralph, sir?
You may absolutely call me Ralph. It will be my honor. Thanks for having me.
Well, first things first, I need to display my manners by thanking you first ever so much for appearing live on the show tonight. Now, I know...
At Century Arms, we're committed to supporting your freedom, your rights, and your way of life. With generations of craftsmanship and innovation, we proudly provide firearms that embody the spirit of liberty. Introducing the new Sharp Brothers MB-47 rifle, designed for precision, built for strength, and ready for anything. Whether you're on the range or defending what matters most, the MB-47 rifle is where generation meets innovation. For more information, visit us at centuryarms.com now.
It's just after 11 p.m. on the East Coast, so that is why I really appreciate your taking the time to speak to me this late. So welcome and thank you, and I truly mean that quite sincerely. Let's start with the start, though. Let's start at the basics, because you have a lot of sites and whatnot. Can you please tell everybody where you can be read, your websites, and your social media?
If you want to read most of my commentary, you can go to the Black Elephant Consultants.com website. That would be the place to go where you would be able to read most of my commentary. You can contact me through the email there, and I would most gladly welcome any opportunity to speak and communicate with any of your listeners.
By the way, I'm scolded in chat, and they gave me a slap on the wrist, and they said, by the way, you're supposed to call him the Kraken. Okay.
Not necessary.
Okay, so the Kraken. The first thing I took out of this is when looking at your bio and CV, I see you grew up in New York City. So I'm kind of a city guy, and now I'm sort of a out in the country guy. I spend my time between Sacramento and I got a cabin up in Sierra Nevada mountains. So I never grew up in a big city. So growing up in New York City, what was your childhood like?
Well, it was a typical childhood. I was raised by a single mother in Harlem. I was fortunate enough not to have to suffer through the New York City public school system. I just went to Catholic schools.
Oh, okay.
And I just had a very, for me, a normal, typical childhood that was just uneventful.
Obviously, my guess would be, number one, since I don't know, is your mom still alive?
Yes, she is.
Okay.
And she's still living in the same apartment in Harlem in which I was raised.
Wow. Outstanding. If I may ask and be so bold, how old is she?
My mother is 88.
God bless her. That's a wonderful thing. My dad passed when he was 88 years old. And, boy, love your parents while you can, while you still got them. Absolutely incredible. Now, you said it was kind of a normal neighborhood, but how is it that your mom was sufficiently able to put you into a Catholic school? Because all the public schools are PS, 1,523, but you didn't go to a public school in New York.
Well, I was raised, and I hate the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. I really do hate that phrase. But my mother had a support system around her of, aunts and her sister who helped her raise me and my brother. And just that combination of those people, pouring their love, affection, and money, gave me the opportunity.
And that's a wonderful thing. In retrospect, I don't know how much. There are so many things that I wish that I'd asked my parents, and there are so many things that I wished I'd asked my father, who passed last. My mother passed first. But my guess would be, if you speak to your mom, I'll wager you have a pretty darn good idea of literally, as a single mom, raising two kids. Now, you said you have one brother, correct?
Yes, unfortunately, he passed a few years ago.
Okay. Sad to hear about that, but I'll wager your mother did an incredible job of sacrificing for you and your brother. How was she able to do that? How with all the challenges in a big damn city where things can be so impersonal, how was she able to pull off raising you two guys to the point where everyone knows, I'm not saying anything out of school, you're a stellar example of a human being. You've done all the right things. For gosh sakes, you've got a show called The Right Guy, so obviously that's true. How did your mom pull it? How did she manage to do it all and raise a man such as yourself in what had to be challenging, a very challenging situation?
Well, the first thing you do is you don't rely on the government; you rely on yourself. It's hard work. You get up and you take yourself to work when you are almost on your deathbed. You work yourself. You push yourself. You demand excellence from yourself. You demand excellence from your children, and nothing else will be accepted. It's really simple mathematics.
Already, this show is going in a wonderful, wonderful direction. And your neighborhood, you had the support that was necessary. The support that was there. Now, when you're a young kid, and obviously you are a politically aware individual. You're a black elephant. You're living in D.C. or just outside of D.C., which is the veritable belly of the beast in terms of the federal government.
No, I live in D.C. I live a 5-minute drive from the U.S. Capitol.
Holy moly. Okay, well then, as I say about Sacramento, California, because the studio here is about 2 miles from the state capitol, you know, on a good night when the winds are moving in the proper direction, I can smell the sulfur emanating from the state capitol.
Absolutely.
And my guess would be on appropriate nights, depending upon the prevailing winds, you can probably smell the sulfur emanating from the Capitol itself as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. As you were growing up, now you went to Catholic school, and you went to Catholic school in high school as well?
Yes.
Okay. When did you start? Was there any particular moment when you thought, I think I'm kind of becoming politically aware? Is there one?
At Century Arms, we're committed to supporting your freedom, your rights, and your way of life. With generations of craftsmanship and innovation, we proudly provide firearms that embody the spirit of liberty. Introducing the new Sharp Brothers MB-47 rifle, designed for precision, built for strength, and ready for anything. Whether you're on the range or defending what matters most, the MB-47 rifle is where generation meets innovation. For more information, visit us at centuryarms.com now.
Particular time when politics, that you remember politics really started to get to you. They started to be interesting to you.
Well, I was always interested in politics. No, I remember I was like the third or the fourth grade, and the one of the nuns, it was American history, and she asked who were the state senators, who were the U.S. senators from the state of New York, and I was the only kid in the class who knew. So politics has always been something that has interested me. Of course, growing up, I grew up in a Democrat stronghold.
Okay.
Everyone in my family, well, I'll say 99.9% of everyone in my family is still a Democrat. When it came time for me to register to vote at 18, I registered as a Democrat. And, and that's, the source for me is the transition of my awakening from just being a knee-jerk Democrat to being a conscious thinking conservative.
Okay. Sometimes I wait when I speak to people for the first time on the show, because obviously I'd love to have you back any darn time you want to. But customarily, when I speak to somebody for the first time on the show, I wait a little bit longer before I ask this question, but I'm just going to come out and ask it now. People have what I term pivotal moments in their lives. For example, I had 4 specifically, one of them being how and when I got into law enforcement, another one having to do with a very critical incident, a shooting I was involved in the 70s as a peace officer. Now, having said that, what would you estimate, and I define a pivotal moment as a point in your life where you thought your life was going one particular direction and suddenly you found it going another. So what would you estimate, Ralph Chittams, as being some of the pivotal moments, transitioning moments of your life, sir?
Well, I think the first transitioning moment of my life was making a conscious decision, because I was raised by a single mother, that no child of mine would ever grow up not knowing who his or her father was.
Perfect.
So that was probably the first. The second was getting married.
Okay.
And on the political side, I just woke up one morning and I realized that the Democrat Party had gone so far to the left that they had left me, and I realized that I didn't believe what they believed. I didn't hold the same values that they held, and I switched, and I haven't looked back.
Now, when that happened, when you, it's sort of a big sort of self-awareness type moment, I'm guessing, where it was sort of, bing, this big light illuminated over your head. Now, how old were you, or what were you doing at the time where you said, you know what, this is not going like I thought? Were you in college or in high school?
So I graduated from college. I had gotten involved in local politics here in the District of Columbia,
okay,
as a Democrat. And you just look around and you just realize, what the heck are these people talking about? They are absolute, it's after 11 o'clock, so I can say they're just batshit crazy.
Yeah, true. Hey, listen, the truth hurts.
Exactly. And literally, it was, I didn't believe what the Democrat Party had morphed into. I didn't believe in abortion on demand. I didn't believe in the burgeoning homosexual movement. You know, I didn't believe those things. And it was like, I can't live in this house any longer. It's time for me to go.
We're going to talk tonight, and we are talking tonight, about two of the things that people absolutely say should not be discussed almost anywhere anymore: politics and religion. You're obviously a pastor. You're a reverend. You are ordained. We've spoken a little bit about the political side, and trust me, we will get back to that. But when was it that something parted, a curtain parted with you, and you thought, okay, it really is my passion in life to follow God and to study about religion? Was there any particular moment or a time when it was illuminated to you and you figured out, you know what, this is my path right now?
It was shortly after the birth of my twin daughters. And so they're 22 now, so that gives you a time frame.
Okay.
But it was at that point where, you know, I looked up and, you know, you as they say, you hear the calling, that there is so much more to what's going on this planet Earth than we can see with our natural eye. You know, and the spiritual is more important than the temporal. And if you don't get in touch with the spiritual, you'll never be able to effectually change the temporal.
Let me throw this out there and ask you, did seeing the miracle of birth, did that have something to do with it?
No, because I have two older sons as well.
Okay.
It was sort of just it was time. You know, it was like God was like, okay, I've been playing with you long enough. You know, you are becoming aware of the universe, spirituality, and now it's time for you to do what I want you to do. And, you know, as most people do, I started bargaining because I really didn't want to be a preacher. You know, I'm also a classical pianist,
okay.
So I started bargaining with God. You know, I'll be a musician in the church. You know, I'll be a minister of music. I'll be a choir director. You know, I'll do all of these other things except what you really want me to do. And, you know, he let me play around with that kind of stuff for about 2
At Century Arms, we're committed to supporting your freedom, your rights, and your way of life. With generations of craftsmanship and innovation, we proudly provide firearms that embody the spirit of liberty. Introducing the new Sharp Brothers MB-47 rifle, designed for precision, built for strength, and ready for anything. Whether you're on the range or defending what matters most, the MB-47 rifle is where generation meets innovation. For more information, visit us at centuryarms.com now.
Years, and then he finally said, enough is enough. I called you to be one of my preachers. And I've been doing it ever since.
I have to say, I was caught flat-footed by the fact that you're a classical pianist. You know, I almost threw this into the introduction because when I started going into your background, looking at your CV and all the various the doctorates and the masters and whatnot that you took from various colleges, I thought, probably I'll bet Ralph in his spare time solves celestial mechanical equations and does that in his spare time and does that for MIT. Now I find out that you're a classical pianist, and now I'm back to, okay, that's probably what Ralph does. He talks about and he works for MIT on the QT, and he solves equations for them so that we can get our very own hyperdrive here in the United States. There almost isn't anything that you don't do, Ralph Chittams. It's like I said, the classic quintessential underachiever. Now, your relationship with God and your interest in politics, did you find them initially at odds with each other?
Absolutely not. They have always been able to coexist peacefully and mutually inclusively.
Okay. So you figured that the path that you were taking in terms of the political was essentially the contiguous path that you were taking with God as well. It was all, as far as you were concerned, it was all part of the same journey then, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no way you can separate the two. If you are a person of faith, you live that faith not just on Sunday between 11 and 2 or Saturday or Friday night. That is who you are, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And if that's who you are, then that also must, by necessity, influence your politics.
Okay, we're going to get to the crux of the biscuit. We have about 5 more minutes before the bottom of the hour break. Folks, we're talking to the Reverend Ralph J. Chittams, Sr. He has his own show right here on the SHR Media Network. It's called The Right Guy. And he's made some startling revelations. He's a black elephant, lives in the D.C. area. And that, in and of itself, black, conservative, living in D.C., that's got to present some challenges in and of itself, and we're going to get to that. We will get to that after the break. But let's Ralph, if I could, let's start with some of the big ticket items and kind of work backwards. What do you think of the coming? Sure. What do you think of the coming midterms and the point that the Republicans are at in 2018? What do you think they're looking at, and how do you think things might turn out? Do you believe?
Typically, the party that's in the White House loses a couple of seats in the midterm election. That's normal.
Okay.
I expect that to happen on this election cycle. Therefore, it's nothing to lose any sleep over. That's just a political cycle.
Okay. In terms of, I've heard things from saying that there are 5 Democrat senators right now, who are in a very precarious and challenging position, and one of them is Claire McCaskill. Do you see anything? In other words, if seats change, do you see that, Ralph, happening more in the House than in the Senate?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Like I said, politics is science as well as art. And,
yes.
When you look at what's happened just historically, you typically have a larger changeover in House seats than in Senate seats. But when you look at, the presidential election that comes 2 years after that, more often than not, the sitting president gets reelected. So, midterm elections, even though they're important, they should not be considered as any bellwether regarding the presidential election coming up 2 years later.
We got about a minute and a half or so before the bottom of the hour break, but I'm gonna, unfortunately, I'm gonna pin you down right now because this is going to be an absolutely startling revelation. And the question is, did you vote for Donald Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head?
Yes, I did. How's that for a straight answer?
That is a straight answer. Before we go, one final question. I know it's early, but would you consider voting for Donald Trump in 2020?
As of right now, I see no reason not to vote for Donald Trump in 2020.
Okay. All righty. Well, we got that out of the way. Folks, wow. It's only a half hour. I've only got another half hour left, and I got a ton of questions. We are speaking to the Reverend Ralph J. Chittams, Sr. He has his own show that you need to go to every day, The Right Guy, with Reverend Ralph J. Chittams. And we're going to be right back right after this brief break. So, folks, pretty please don't go away.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my...
At Century Arms, we're committed to supporting your freedom, your rights, and your way of life. With generations of craftsmanship and innovation, we proudly provide firearms that embody the spirit of liberty. Introducing the new Sharp Brothers MB-47 rifle, designed for precision, built for strength, and ready for anything. Whether you're on the range or defending what matters most, the MB-47 rifle is where generation meets innovation. For more information, visit us at centuryarms.com now.
New show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittams Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reverend Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on SHRmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk, the Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it. Some of the best A-roll is going to be Like, what are you talking about? Just the last question really cut a couple seconds. Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Good point. Exactly right.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct. Not far, less than 2 miles from the veritable belly of the beast, I can smell the stench of sulfur from here. Sacra Tomato, Fornicalia, where I broadcast behind enemy lines Tuesday and Thursday nights. Oh my gosh. And we're talking to the Reverend Ralph J. Chittams Sr. tonight. I got a ton of questions. We only got about another 25 minutes or so left. So, Ralph, got a question for you. How can the GOP, is there a way, do you think, sir, for the GOP to go about telling more people, look, okay, it's okay to be a conservative and to have conservative values? In other words, how can the GOP manage to get more people into the tent, to use the phrase?
Don't be afraid to talk to people. I mean, it really is just that simple. You cannot be afraid to open your mouth, regardless of the setting, and speak conservative truth. Now, okay, I live in Southeast Washington, D.C., Ward 7, one of the blackest parts of Washington, D.C., and I go to a local barber shop in Ward 7 to get my hair cut.
Okay.
My barber can't wait for me to walk into the door because he wants to start trouble. And every time I walk in, we start talking politics. And let me tell you, during the last election cycle, I was in the barbershop, and I was talking Donald Trump, and I was talking Hillary Clinton. And I would point out some of the positions and statements that Hillary Clinton had made. And then I would point out some of the issues and positions that Donald Trump had carved out. And while I didn't convince, everyone in the barbershop to vote for Donald Trump, I did convince the ones that didn't vote for Donald Trump not to go and vote for Hillary Clinton. So either way, it was a win. But Republicans cannot be afraid to walk into the lion's den and speak the truth.
Here's one thing that I learned about D.C., and after I say this, Ralph, I'd like your opinion or your thoughts on it. I worked for the FBI, and I worked for them in the late 70s. And, of course, when you do that, you're going to go to D.C. because the only place that they train you is in Quantico, but you get assigned to the WMFO, the Washington Metro Field Office. So I was aware of D.C. I got to tell you, D.C., for the people that haven't been there, it's a schizo city. It's got all of these memorials, and then you go, say, one block east of the Supreme Court, and it's like someone dropped this incredible big wall. Boom. You go from D.C. memorials and buildings, etc., and then you walk into pretty much abject poverty. It's a schizo town. Is that kind of correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, in D.C. we have what we call east of the river. And east of the river comprises Ward 7 and 8, which are the two poorest wards in the city. And those wards comprise the largest black population in the city. Washington, D.C. really is a tale of two towns.
Yes.
It is a federal city, and then it's the residential city. But the residential city itself then bifurcates into the haves and the have-nots.
And also D.C., my understanding is, and especially Maryland and the environs around it, that's some of the most expensive real estate in the United States right there. It's a terrible conflict. So it kind of leads to my next question. In my estimation, leftism as embraced by the Democrats is completely unsustainable. How do we go about trying to convince what...
At Century Arms, we're committed to supporting your freedom, your rights, and your way of life. With generations of craftsmanship and innovation, we proudly provide firearms that embody the spirit of liberty. Introducing the new Sharp Brothers MB-47 rifle, designed for precision, built for strength, and ready for anything. Whether you're on the range or defending what matters most, the MB-47 rifle is where generation meets innovation. For more information, visit us at centuryarms.com now.
I consider to be, and I don't care what color you are, that's immaterial in terms of this. It's an ill-educated, ignorant, and naive electorate, purposely so in many cases, in my opinion, and we'll get to that. How can we convince leftists, etc., that, that way of life is absolutely, to use their word, their phrase, it's unsustainable?
Part of the trick is for Republicans not to step on their own message and get out of the way of the Democrats and let the Democrats self-destruct, because their policies will destroy their constituents. And that's what's happening now, especially in urban America. You're starting to see, well, in this last election cycle, Donald Trump got something like 14% of the black male vote, which is an astounding number. And what's happening now is black women may not be gravitating towards Donald Trump or the Republican Party, but black women are waking up to the fact that the Democrat Party hasn't done anything for them or their families for the past 3 generations.
That brings up another question. And I was a little hesitant to ask this, but hey, we're laying all the cards out on the table. We're talking God, we're talking politics. 2 of the things you really ought not to be talking about in a civilized society, except that, of course, we talk God and politics right here in the saloon. In my opinion, and I'd like your thoughts, in my opinion, it is the Democrats who are responsible for killing the once nuclear black family. I can't see any other way of saying anything other than that. Do you have any thoughts on that, sir?
That statement is inarguable. That statement is a flat-out truth.
Thank you.
And when you look at the truth of Margaret Sanger's Planned Parenthood, Negro Project, you can see very clearly that the power of the black community has been completely obliterated at the feet of the abortionists. Because political power, economic power is dependent upon people. People. Now, when you consider that the first legal abortion in this country was performed in 1973, and here's another inarguable fact, there have been 20 million black babies aborted legally since 1973. You figure 21 years after 1973, that first child that was aborted would have started having children. So now we're from 73, we're at 94. So now, in 1994, you now have a second generation of black people who were never born because the first generation was murdered by Planned Parenthood. You go from 1994 now up to 2015, now you have grandchildren that have never been born because their parents and grandparents were killed at the abortion clinic in 1973. If anyone wants to understand where black political power has disappeared to, if they want to understand where black economic power has disappeared to, there are 50 million missing black people from the United States of America as a direct result of the Democrat policies and Planned Parenthood.
And the thing that I find absolutely reprehensible about this, and that goes to the fact that I quantify too many of the electorate as ignorant, naive, and purposely so, is that Democrats and those that support the Democrats, Ralph, they're proud of that. They're proud of a Hillary Clinton that embraced Margaret Sanger, just as you pointed out. This is an individual who advocated for, essentially, let's be clear, the genocide of blacks and women.
Absolutely.
Women, Hillary supporters, Democrats are supporting this, and they fail to grasp the connection. I don't get it.
Well, they fail to grasp the connection because, as you say, the Democrats, they have also been highly successful in dumbing down the American populace.
Thank
you. Through the miseducation of our public school system.
Thank you. And for those of you who just tuned in, thank you, because you just transitioned into my next question, and that's this. I have said for years that if you control education and you control SCOTUS, you control America. So SCOTUS looks hopeful with Neil Gorsuch coming on board, and it looks to me like I predicted. It looks like we may get an Anthony Kennedy vacancy. He may be stepping down this summer. But with
the rumor.
That's the rumor. Ralph, how do we somehow regain control of education, remove the insanity quotient from education, and instill basics, ethics, mores, the family, God, dare I say the word, back into the situation and bring normality back to the United States? Education is, just as you pointed out, it's off the hook.
Yeah, well, one of the big trends that's actually helping is this exploding homeschool phenomenon, where people are literally checking out of the miseducation system known as public education, and they're taking the responsibility for educating their children on themselves. So that's a real big plus. But now here is where I get into trouble all the time.
Okay.
It's because a huge part of the problem is the faith community has abdicated its responsibility of speaking truth to power, and instead of speaking truth to power, they've climbed into bed with the Democrats so that they can get money for their little pet projects at the church, and they no longer speak about issues that are detrimental to their own congregants.
I find that there's rampant hypocrisy, obviously, on the left. But the thing that I still find it difficult to wrap my head around, we're talking to Ralph Chittams, Reverend Ralph Chittams, of the Right Guy Show here on the SHR Media Network. The thing I find myself, it's so difficult to wrap my head around the conflict that is inherent with the leftist philosophy.
At Century Arms, we're committed to supporting your freedom, your rights, and your way of life. With generations of craftsmanship and innovation, we proudly provide firearms that embody the spirit of liberty. Introducing the new Sharp Brothers MB-47 rifle, designed for precision, built for strength, and ready for anything. Whether you're on the range or defending what matters most, the MB-47 rifle is where generation meets innovation. For more information, visit us at centuryarms.com now.
That they, for example, we want to take blacks into our party, and yet we don't mind slaughtering them literally, as you say, by the millions. And now when we have, as you point out so properly, when we have religion that is willing to step aside and allow other people to hijack its values, I find it very difficult to understand, where do we go next? Where do we go next?
Well, where we go next is those of us who know the truth cannot be afraid to speak the truth.
Thank you.
Understanding that there is going to be a price to be paid. You know, I am ostracized inside of the black clergy community in Washington, D.C.
I don't doubt that at all.
Simply because of my politics,
yep.
Not because of my theology. My theology is rock solid. They don't like me because of my politics. And that's absolutely insane.
And that's a challenge that you have to live and walk through every day of your life because you're living right in the middle of it. You're a reverend that's highly credentialed, a highly intelligent man trying to point out to people that don't want to see the truth that, unfortunately, according to, in my opinion, is right in front of their face. Now, you wrote an article, sir, that asked the question that I'm going to ask now. Are people truly free in the United States of America? And it's an excellent question. And you wrote an entire article about it. And many people would say, well, yes, certainly, we're completely free. Well, are we free in America, Ralph?
Well, let me first give my eldest son credit for coming up with the phrase.
Okay.
And the truth of the matter is no. We are really not free in America.
True.
What we are is free range. Now, people usually use the term free range when they talk about chickens and livestock,
right?
Meaning that, they're allowed to live out their lives, not in chicken coops and not in barns and not in cages. And, they're free. They're free range because the truth of the matter is they're only as free as the fence allows them to go.
Yes.
And for us as Americans, we have the illusion of freedom because most Americans never run into the fence. So we think we're free because we're running around in the pasture.
That's a really insightful way of putting it. Now, there's a person in chat, Mike in chat says, BZ, ask the Reverend why blacks are in favor of education vouchers, but Democrats are not. And that's another conflict. How does that exist?
Well, the Democrats understand that in order to keep, and not just blacks, but anyone on their plantation, you have to keep them miseducated and undereducated.
Yep.
Now, most people want their children to do better, and when they realize the education system isn't permitting their children to excel, they will push against that, and that's why you see this split between loyal black Democrat rank and file and the political class of Democrats, because the rank and file Democrats want their children to succeed, but the political class of Democrats need to keep them undereducated and stupid.
And thank you. God bless you for being as blunt and truthful as you are. I value two things in anybody that I come across or speak to: honesty and clarity. And you are absolutely both of those. Now, we talked about some things that are unsustainable and how the Democrats are involved in those. But here's an item that I'd like to throw out to you and garner your opinion on this, that almost no one mentions: the debt. What are your feelings on the U.S. debt? How can we somehow regain control of this absolutely unsustainable budget? We haven't had an actual budget, and being in D.C., you can probably correct me if factually I'm incorrect on this, but I don't believe that we've had an actual real budget passed in D.C. in 9, almost 10 years. And no one seems to be addressing this issue. They just want more free cheese. But we can't keep going there. Do you have any thoughts on that particular issue, sir?
Well, what we also have to realize is that we have corporatists and globalists throughout Congress. And as long as they can control the purse strings, it becomes almost irrelevant who's in the White House. Because unless the person in the White House really has the stones to veto a budget and in fact shut down the government, and not these fake shutdowns that they do,
yes,
for kabuki theater,
yep,
nothing is going to change because of the globalists and the corporatists that we have embedded in Congress like ticks.
You use a phrase that I've used many a time, and that's kabuki theater, because D.C. quite frequently is kabuki theater, people doing odd and Byzantine dances, or I call it theater of the absurd. That's absolutely correct. We got about 7 more minutes before the top of the hour. Now, we're going to transition. We're going to change gears just a little bit, because the talk these days now is all about the Second Amendment. And I have to reveal up front that I am a member of the NRA. And I've also been the range master for a 2,000-plus officer department, peace officer department in California. So I'm well-versed in firearms and laws about firearms, certainly in California. And I have to tell you, I state quite unequivocally that I am not surrendering my Second Amendment rights, period, end of statement. That having been said, because that's where the focus is these days on the Second Amendment, what are your thoughts or insights on the Second Amendment itself, sir?
I am a member of the NRA.
Fist bump to you, sir. Unapologetic.
Right.
You bet.
Right. I live in the District of Columbia, which has some of the most strict gun laws in the nation. And yes, I legally own firearms in the District of Columbia. I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe that the right shall not be infringed.
Yes.
Period. End of discussion. And I would just like to have a conversation with one of these gun control individuals who actually knew a little bit about guns before they opened their mouth and started spouting a whole bunch of foolishness.
That's absolutely true. That's incredibly true. I quantify the situation about the Second Amendment as this, and we're going to get down to the fundamentals because we got about another 5 more minutes, and I think we can kind of wrap it up on this. You always have to ask yourself, in terms of the Second Amendment, which leads to the First Amendment, because you lose the Second Amendment, boys and girls, you're going to lose the First Amendment, and that's already being challenged right here, right now, in the United States of America. But in terms of the Second Amendment, what changed? I ask everyone, including Ralph, what changed? The tool, the firearm, or did society change? Gun crime numbers are down significantly since the 1990s when I was a robbery and homicide detective. So the gun hasn't changed. The tool has not changed. The firearm has not changed. And yet we're rallying against a piece of metal. So I throw it out to you, Ralph. If the firearm didn't change, what changed?
What changed is the dumbing down of America. Flat and simple. People who think they know what they're talking about, they think they know American history, they think they know the American Constitution, they don't know shit from Shinola.
Exactly.
I mean, I went out on social media a couple of weeks ago, and I said flat out, if you consider yourself to be, woke, which is, the current term of art, and you don't know what the Federalist Papers are, you don't know jack. And people don't know the history of the Second Amendment. They don't know that the Second Amendment was put in as a bulwark against tyranny. They don't understand any of that, and they don't understand it because it has purposely been removed from the curriculum of our classrooms so that the globalists and the corporatists can, usher in this crazy new world order, one world government where the United States citizens will become slaves to the United Nations or whatever entity they decide to prop up to take over the world. This has been done purposely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In Europe, in many parts of Europe, many Europeans are saying, we wish we had our very own version of your Second Amendment. But that's just not it in terms of, because what are you, what are they, what is anyone potentially in a government setting if they don't have the ability to defend themselves in any way? They become underlings, proles, serfs. They become servants to the government.
Right.
And one of the other biggest things that I'm sure that you will not disagree with, what else has been removed from the American scene? Ethics.
Faith has been completely removed from the public square. But one other point I wanted to make is, people want to talk about, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and the nonviolent, civil rights movement.
Yep.
But what people don't know about is the fact that while Dr. King was marching on the streets peacefully, there was a group standing off in a distance called the Deacons for Defense with their rifles and their guns, basically telling, the other folks, you better let these marchers through because we have guns, and if you attack them, we will shoot you. But that part of the civil rights struggle has been conveniently removed and sanitized so that black people think that, we got where we got simply because we were peaceful and we marched and we prayed and we called on the name of Jesus. No, there were some dudes with guns on the hill saying, don't start none, won't be none.
I'm going to have to end it up like this because you and I both know that this is the truth. What else has been removed from the equation? God has been removed.
Absolutely.
From the equation. And I would submit to you...
from the public square.
Yes, and I would submit to you, Reverend Ralph J. Chittams Sr., this has been done purposefully over the years, without
Absolutely.
A doubt. Folks, I have to thank you. We've been speaking to the Reverend Ralph J. Chittams Sr., and, sir, I must thank you ever so kindly for staying up so late tonight in order to talk to me. You have, of course, naturally, an open invitation to come back anytime you wish because I always want to hear more of what you say. So, again, before we get to the top of the hour, tell everyone where you can be read, where you can be contacted, any social media, anything that you'd like the folks to know in terms of being able to read your material, listen to you, or understand what's going on in D.C.
Right. Well, I say go to the website for BlackElephantConsultants.com. There are a few commentaries up there. I thank you for mentioning the one about free range. I'm on social media, Facebook, under my own name. I say what I say. I don't hide. I take the lumps and bruises for it, but I'm a big guy. And please, reach out and talk to me. I would love to share and speak with anyone who's interested.
This has been a wonderful, wonderful interview. I thank you ever so kindly. Reverend Chittams, Ralph, thank you ever so much again for appearing here in the Berserk Bobcat Saloon tonight. And I have to say, in finality, it was my honor to have you here tonight, sir.
Well, thank you. I'm humbled by that, and I truly appreciate the invitation. I will be back.
Thank you ever so kindly. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we were talking to the Reverend Ralph J. Chittams, and I thank you ever so kindly for being here tonight. That was a stellar interview from a stellar individual that I definitely am going to have to get back on the show. But, of course, what do we have tonight? Oh, we have politics. Did some things occur today? Yes, they did. How about some things that occurred yesterday or perhaps over the weekend? Well, I'd say, yeah, a lot of that stuff occurred. More buttery political goodness ahead. Folks, don't go away.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Good evening. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is featured on the SHR Media Network every Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, whilst manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists.
At Century Arms, we're committed to supporting your freedom, your rights, and your way of life. With generations of craftsmanship and innovation, we proudly provide firearms that embody the spirit of liberty. Introducing the new Sharp Brothers MB-47 rifle, designed for precision, built for strength, and ready for anything. Whether you're on the range or defending what matters most, the MB-47 rifle is where generation meets innovation. For more information, visit us at centuryarms.com now.
BZ continues to radically change the world of leftists, one diaper at a time. Stop balancing your checkbooks. Stop cleaning your fish tanks. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is your magnet for truth, justice, obesity, a darkened studio, and late-night freedom. No United States of America freedoms were abridged in the making of this ad.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittams Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on SHRmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk, the Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it.
Some of the best A-roll is going to be B-roll.
Like, what are you talking about? We can just, the last question, we can cut a couple seconds. Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Good point. Exactly right. Oh, God.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reverend Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, that was a wonderful, wonderful interview with the Reverend Ralph J. Chittams Sr., and I really appreciated the fact that he took the time to stay up so doggone late to be with us here in the saloon. Now, earlier, I think, let's see, Mike said, hey, what was Ralph's website? And if you go into your favorite search engine and look up Black Elephant Consultants LLC, you'll find Ralph is right there. And then if you want to go listen to some of Ralph's earlier stuff, you can go to Spreaker, Spreaker.com, and there's a little search box, a search field at the top of Spreaker. Enter either Ralph Chittams or enter The Right Guy, and you'll be able to pick up any number of his shows that he's done on Spreaker in the past for the SHR Media Network. And if you just go into your favorite search engine, you'll find Ralph. He's on Twitter. He's on Facebook. I found him on Facebook. He's on BEC. Ralph's got a really big, far and wide imprint. And here's the thing. When you start to read about Ralph, you'll finally begin to understand how far and wide the depth and breadth of his knowledge is, how he knows about the media, he knows about churches, he knows about the workings of God, about religion, and how all of this intertwines and dovetails together. He's on any number of councils, groups, always working hard to try to get God back into our lives, to try to make things better. I mean, when I laughingly said that he was an underachiever, but he's a guy that when you start to look and find stuff on him in the internet, he's all over the place. And if there were ever a man who was doing good works, and I mean that with a capital G and a capital W, it would be the Reverend Ralph J. Chittams Sr. His story is amazing. And I truly, if Ralph still happens to be listening, or anybody else that happens to be to talk to him, dude, Ralph, I got to get you back on again, because there are so many things that I'd like to tap your brain about in terms of your opinion. I had a list, honest to goodness. I had 11 pages of questions that I wanted to ask Ralph, and they were all double-spaced. But one question would go on for 2 or 3 lines. Seriously, I'm not kidding. I had so many questions for Ralph, and we have so little time. We're in the second hour. It is Tuesday. It is March the 13th, the year of our Lord, 2018, and we're talking about the Second Amendment. And now here comes an article that is illuminating, and it's by one of my favorite authors and columnists. It's by Kurt Schlichter. And I think I'm going to have to turn in on my little light here so I can see, because oddly enough, in my 7th decade, you very infrequently see me with reading glasses, because I have forced my eyes to not use reading glasses over the years. I know people that are in their 30s that use reading glasses, but I do need to keep something more than about a foot away from my face. And also that I've discovered when you get a little older, you need more light when you want to read. Here's an article by Kurt Schlichter. This is from townhall.com. The title is 7 Terrible Liberal Gun Control Arguments and How to Beat Them. That's why I'm reading this to you tonight, because if you want to have logical and cogent replies to the people that challenge you all the time, hey, let's talk about this. He writes, I argue for a living. I often deal with hacks, liars, and agenda-driven fanatics, but never in a quarter century of being in courtrooms have I faced such a blizzard of constitutional illiteracy. Hey, just like Ralph points out, right? Technical ignorance, flabby reasoning, and outright lies, as I have when dealing with people who think our Second Amendment rights are up for debate. Our rights are not up for debate, but as a courtesy, because talking is a way a free people should endeavor to solve problems, we should debate them anyway. Rational discussion beats the alternative. Many of us are vets who saw the alternative overseas, even if the other side prefers emotional blackmail using articulate infants to bum rush their anti-civil rights policies. So here are 7, it could have been 50, of the most annoying and dishonest arguments you will hear, and how you can fight them. Number 1, you don't actually have the right to own guns because you aren't in a militia. Nope, that's wrong right off the line, because Heller v. District of Columbia 2008 holds as a matter of settled law that individuals have the right to keep and bear arms regardless of their militia status. The Second Amendment provides a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Justice Scalia, writing for the majority in Heller, dismissed the argument that this right somehow, despite the very clear text, belongs to militias and not to individuals. Your opponent may not like that, but that's what Heller says. That's what the Constitution says. And as usual, Justice Scalia's reasoning was incisive and compelling. He dismissed the militia reference as merely announcing just one purpose of the Second Amendment, not its only purpose. The prefatory clause does not limit the scope of the right, but even if it did, that interpretation would not change the nature of the right. The militia is, by statute, all able-bodied males at least 17 years of age and under 45 years of age who are or have been made a declaration of intention to become citizens of the United States. This demonstrates the founders' intention that able-bodied citizens must protect the communities and Constitution. History teaches, and Justice Scalia observed, that these citizens maintained their personal weapons at home and were ready to act when needed, whether it was to stop redcoat gun control activists at Lexington and Concord or to mobilize to defend Korean stores during the Los Angeles riots in 1992. I was there with the Army in L.A., by the way. Don't tell me chaos can't happen here. Thanks, Kurt. Number 2. But wait, it says well-regulated militia. Doesn't that mean the National Guard? No. Guard soldiers and airmen are part of the militia, but the Guard is a component of the United States Army or Air Force. During my time in the Guard, my uniform's service tape read U.S. Army, and I held a U.S. Army Reserve Commission. Guard members are part of the standing military. The interpretation liberals assert would render the Second Amendment meaningless, which is what liberals want, but that's not how one interprets a legal text. Well, aren't citizens with guns not well-regulated? No. Congress regulates the militia. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 16 of the Constitution provides that, quote, the Congress shall have power to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and Congress has decided that what a well-regulated militia means. It means the current level of regulation. Since that is what Congress has imposed, it could enact further regulation if it wished. If the Congress feels like decreeing that every member of the militia, which Congress can expand as it wishes to better reflect society, must be armed with an AR-15, it can. Kurt writes, hint, hint. And no, the rest of the amendment limits the ability of Congress to disarm the people, so it can't well regulate the right out of existence. Number 3. Well, Scalia still says guns can be regulated, so we can ban modern weapons. No. What the anti-civil rights crowd likes to do is cite language from Heller that recognizes a few traditional exceptions to when and what arms may be kept and borne. In other words, gun banners try to have narrow exceptions swallow up the rule, always pivot back to and demand that these people recite the basic holding. The Second Amendment recognizes the right of citizens to individually keep weapons in common use for lawful purposes, including self-defense. Liberals hate when you do that, especially when you confront them with the fact that Heller protects weapons, quote, in common use. In that case, it was handguns. However, the fake assault weapons that liberals hate, which are involved in a tiny fraction of crimes, numbers in the millions, AR-15 style weapons are in common use. Deal with it. Number 4. We just want common sense gun regulations since there aren't any now. Oh, I guess they never filled out a Form 4473, and I've mentioned this a number of times and what that is here on the Saloon. You know, all the lies about it being easier to buy a gun than a Pepsi don't exactly inspire us to believe that the gun banners' pleas for common sense reforms are anything but the first steps towards confiscation and disarming our citizenry. Lying demonstrates a lack of good faith. Nor does the fact that none of these common-sense gun regulations addresses the problem they cite. Ask your gun banner pals which reforms they want that would have stopped any of the recent killing sprees by people who are not conservative observant.
At Canic Firearms, we believe in the power of freedom. Freedom to protect, to defend, and to live confidently. That's why we're proud to introduce the Canic Mete MC9L and MC9LS, precision-engineered pistols designed for today's American. Whether you're carrying concealed or out at the range, the MC9L and MC9LS are built for accuracy, durability, and comfort. These pistols are the perfect blend of performance and dependability because freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. Canik, Superior Firearms.
Christian or Jewish NRA members. Background checks are their usual go-to. Those are already a thing. And the scumbags all passed. Except for the one scumbag whose check the FBI screwed up. Instead of hassling citizens who have committed no crime, maybe we ought to demand our law enforcement agencies start doing their damn jobs. Kurt? Bingo. Thank you. Number 5. You have blood on your hands. Actually, don't stop them when they go this way. Scummy drama queen invective like this is proof that our stubborn defense of our rights is working and that they have nothing else but to lie about us. Their hysterical shrieking helps motivate other people who may not have been paying attention to protect their rights. After all, quote, you support murdering children is a super effective way to alienate normal folks and highlight the essential dishonesty of the gun banners. Number 6. No one wants to take your guns. This is, of course, another classic lie. In fact, that's exactly what liberals want to do. How do we know? They tell us this when they think we're not looking, and with more frequency when we are. It's fun when they say they don't want to take your guns. Then they say you have to give up your ARs. If your opponent is getting wistful about Australia's gun confiscation, well, guess what? He wants to take your guns. So let's get serious. They all want to take your guns. Why? 2 reasons. First, it removes power from the citizenry. Liberals love that. Second, gun rights are important to normal Americans because the fact that we maintain arms means that we are not mere subjects. We are citizens with the power to defend freedom. Liberals hate that we have that dignity. Taking our guns would humiliate us and show us who is boss. Stop. Bingo. Kurt Schlichter has nailed it. He has hit it out of the park with that. They want to disarm us not because of the gun crime. Name a liberal who wants to really do something about Chicago as opposed to hassling law-abiding normals, but because they hate us and they want to see us submit. What did Frank Underwood say? It's about money and power. And if you think it's more about money than power, you're wrong. Even the Frito cons are getting into the act, which is no surprise since never Trumpism is always the first step downward to active liberalism. Pseudo-con Brett Stevens. And if I have time, well, I'm not going to have time tonight, but I'll get back to the Brett Stevens article if you want to go 210 over 190. Pseudocon Brett Stevens demanded that America repeal the Second Amendment in the New York Times in October of 2017. Fellow PuffCon Ross Dutat simpered something similar, and the Captain Steubing of conservatism, Bill Kristol, tweeted his concurrence. I said this before about 4 weeks ago on Sackheads, and I'll say it again now. And I mean it most sincerely from the bottom of my clotted little heart, simply waiting for my factory-issued heart attack. Bill Kristol, fuck you. Number 7. The Second Amendment is obsolete, and this stuff about defending against tyranny is just tinfoil hat-wearing craziness. Obsolete. Isn't our Constitution a living document that should change with the time? Well, in the last couple of decades, gun rights have expanded massively across the country via legislation, faster and more thoroughly than gay marriage did. So the Constitution is evolving towards recognizing more gun rights. Anti-civil rights holdouts, like New York and California, are failing to recognize that the Constitution changes with the times and stuff, and those states must conform to the new consensus about the freedoms to keep and bear arms. That's how this works, right? Right? Did you liberals say that our government is always going to be benevolent? Sorry, I can't hear you over the sound of the revelations of government misconduct and oppression of individual citizens for their views. Also, since Trump is totally Hitler for real, isn't giving him a monopoly on force a bad idea? Think about that for a moment. Finally, there is the claim that a bunch of violent country guys with rifles couldn't take on the government anyway. First, at this threshold, there is disgusting slander. Violence is a last resort, justifiable only in cases of outright active violent tyranny, where no political or judicial processes are available. The idea that American citizens, many veterans, are somehow chomping at the bit for a civil war is right up there in the liberal slander top 10. American citizens do retain the right to use force to stop such tyranny. If some government decided to, say, round up Jewish citizens, violence would be appropriate to protect our fellow citizens as a last resort. Luckily, the street-level law enforcement personnel and military would never do such a thing, but that does not mean a situation could ever arise where people acting under the color of authority might seek to violently violate the Constitution and deprive citizens of their rights and laws. Trust me when I tell you, folks, that's an article for another time, and it frightens me. The founders were wise to recognize our citizens' right to have the ability to resist violent tyranny. But could citizens effectively resist violent tyranny? That's a long story. Someone ought to write a novel on the subject, but the short answer is yes. As Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan all teach, a decentralized insurgency with small arms can effectively confront a modern police military force. Of course, in America's case, the military and the police, rank and file, are much more likely to sympathize with their fellow citizens and freedom than with some hypothetical tyrant, making such a horrifying scenario highly unlikely, though not utterly impossible. But the bottom line is that two untrained idiots with handguns shut down Boston. What do you think 100 million Americans, many trained and some, a significant number I would suggest, battle-tested, could do with their rifles? To get a feel for the level of utter dishonesty amongst our opponents, you can go to this article and you can scroll down to the comments and count the lies about Kurt Schlichter somehow supporting a civil war. Lies. The liberals want to have a conversation about guns. So should those of us who love freedom. We have the facts, we have the law, we have the right, and we have a choice. Citizens bear arms and hold a veto against tyranny. Serfs obey their masters because they have no choice. Pick one. That was an excellent article by Kurt Schlichter. And now that we're on that particular topic, here's another one that I happened to find, and this is much shorter, but I thought it needed to be gone over here. This is by a gentleman by the name of Dennis Lennox, and it was written just a couple of days ago. Now, we talked about a civil war, right? Okay, so Dennis Lennox says, is America nearing a second civil war? While some bemoan Punch and Judy politics, the real issue tearing apart the country aren't the stark ideological differences between Democrats and Republicans, conservatives and liberals, but rather the divide between those who want enforcement of federal immigration law and those who defy and obstruct the enforcers. This is an issue and a debate that has been percolating for years, though it arguably only came into full focus with President Donald J. Trump's signature campaign promise to build a wall. In time, building a wall along the border of the United States and Mexico became a euphemism for enforcement of federal immigration law, including a crackdown on so-called sanctuary cities. So, by the way, I should just throw this in. Where was President Trump today? That's right, he was down in San Diego, in the San Diego area, looking at various examples of a border wall that sooner or later someone's going to approve through California, because California lost its environmental lawsuit against building the border wall. Blow me, California. And I go back to the article. As with much in this debate, sanctuary cities are nothing new. The usual left-wing bastions became safe spaces for illegal immigrants years ago. However, cities and counties that prohibit local police from some or all cooperation with federal authorities charged with enforcing immigration laws gained new infamy after 32-year-old Kate Steinle was murdered along San Francisco's famed Embarcadero waterfront by Jose Ines Garcia Zarat, a Mexican illegal immigrant who has been deported 5 times from the United States and had 7 felony convictions to his name. Just as Arizona tried to enforce federal immigration law during the presidency of Barack Obama, California has gone in the opposite direction and become a sanctuary state. At stake isn't just the potential loss of federal money, which in the case of California, the most populous state, is significant. California, where reportedly 10% of the workforce is in the United States illegally, didn't just increase the stakes, it poured fuel on the fire with its open defiance of the feds. As a result, a dangerous and divisive atmosphere not seen since the Civil War is engulfing America. Then, as now, the differences between the two sides are seemingly irreconcilable. And ironically enough, the battle lines are the same the Democrats once again take with regard the amounts of the secessionist position as well. In Oakland, San Francisco's neighbor across the bay, the Democrat Mayor Libby Schaaf used the full weight of City Hall to warn her constituents about impending raids a day before U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement made 150 arrests. Meanwhile, California Attorney General Xavier Becerra threatened state prosecution of businesses that disclose the legal status of their workers to federal authorities. This despite the fact that Becerra, a Democrat, swore an oath to support and defend and bear true faith and allegiance to the U.S. Constitution. Under these circumstances, it isn't far-fetched to imagine a situation in which a sheriff or a police chief, encouraged by the political leaders of a sanctuary city or state, physically hinders the feds from carrying out a raid in their locale. Think about that for just a moment and its implications. Not only would this escalate the issue, but also it could turn what has been a heated political debate into literal civil unrest and even, dare I say, insurrection. California's deliberate undermining of the legitimate and lawful exercise of the federal government's authority is beyond unconstitutional. It represents an actual danger to the Union. And I completely disagree. The Constitution, one of the biggest things about the U.S. Constitution that altogether too many people, I believe, purposely don't want to acknowledge is the Constitution, and this is what ticks off leftists. The Constitution exists as a limit not on the people, but on the government. There are positive rights versus negative rights. And the Constitution and the Bill of Rights specifically continuously enumerates what the government cannot do. It is not crafted in a form to say what it is that citizens like you and I, lawful citizens, cannot do. It limits government. All right, we've talked about the Second Amendment for a while, enough. If I'd had enough time with Ralph Chittams, and again, thank you, Ralph, for doing that. Oh, I forgot my manners. I'm going to do this. I got about another 1 minute for the bottom of the hour break. Then we're going to come back to this story because this is groundbreaking. And it's not getting any play, of course, which is why you listen to me here and now. But I have to tell you this. We are in an actual studio. This is not the bottom of your mom's basement or anything like this. This is an actual studio, and one day I'm going to make a video about what this place looks like. And yes, it actually does have monitors up here so we can see what's happening with the news. But in here tonight, I have to say thank you very much to one of the owners of the SHR Media Network, Sean Lewis. And the Sackheads are going to be on tomorrow night. And for the first time in probably a month, the Sackheads are going to be back. And it will be me, Sackhead BZ, Sackhead Clint. He will be here. And Sackhead Sean, he will be here. But tonight, Sackhead Sean parked out on the street and sent his son in here with a container. And beforehand, he'd sent me a text message saying, I have a messenger coming for you right now. So I hear this little knock on the door. And it's Sackhead Sean's son. And so I open up the door. Sackhead Sean had made me dinner in a little Tupperware dish with napkins and a fork. And so Sean's son looks up at me and says, okay, I got to go. And turns around and says, bye, Santa.
At Century Arms, we're committed to supporting your freedom, your rights, and your way of life. With generations of craftsmanship and innovation, we proudly provide firearms that embody the spirit of liberty. Introducing the new Sharp Brothers MB-47 rifle, designed for precision, built for strength, and ready for anything. Whether you're on the range or defending what matters most, the MB-47 rifle is where generation meets innovation. For more information, visit us at centuryarms.com now.
So, I have to ask you, what was it that Sackhead Sean happened to make for dinner for old BZ? It was for St. Patty's Day. It was corned beef and cabbage.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reverend Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Hey guys, this is Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Check us out every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network.
And this is Sackhead Clint, as the best-looking one of the bunch. It's my duty to remind you to check us out on our YouTube channel.
And don't forget to check us out on the SHR Media Facebook page. The best-looking one? Really? You going to go there?
Every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific, right here on the SHR
Voters' Choice.
Media
I have the award
Network.
right here.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittams Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show.
And Sackheads BZ.
Wait, I'm Sean.
No, I'm Sean.
All right, listen, we'll figure this out every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Pacific, right here on the...
Where the hell is Clint?
On the SHR Media Network, www.shrmedia.com. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube. Now, right back to this amazing show right here on the SHR Media Network.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct on the SHR Media Network. I am broadcasting currently in the SHR Media Network studios, 2 miles from the veritable belly of the beast, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied Fornicalia. On a good night, or a bad night, like tonight, you can literally smell the sulfur in the air. And unfortunately, I have some sad news for everyone. I get notifications when various pieces of news erupt, and it's sad to say that Stephen Hawking, the famed physicist, passed away just recently and at the age of 76. Stephen Hawking, the famed theoretical physicist who defied a diagnosis of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, to live virtually his entire adult life with the disease in a wheelchair and paralyzed, but making constant contributions to a world that few could understand. He passed away at age 76, a family spokesman said. Although Hawking may have been incapacitated physically, he managed to write books, including the bestseller A Brief History of Time. He managed to teach physics and mathematics, to deliver speeches, and even float in zero gravity, all while working in the fields of cosmology and quantum gravity. He was not modest about what he wanted to do. My goal is simple, he once said. It is a complete understanding of the universe, why it is as it is, and why it exists at all. Hawking reached his 8th decade, but was forced to miss a scientific debate to mark his 70th birthday in January 2012 because he was discharged from a hospital only 2 days earlier. His personal assistant told the Daily Telegraph at the time that his speech was getting noticeably slower, sometimes only a word a minute. As part of the events surrounding his birthday, Hawking gave a rare interview to New Scientist magazine and declared there was still one puzzle left for him. And asked what he thought about most during the day, Hawking replied, women. They are a complete mystery. In earlier interviews, Hawking was frank about his physical restrictions. I'm sure my disability has a bearing on why I'm well known, he said in an interview with the BBC. People are fascinated by the contrast between my very limited physical powers and the vast nature of the universe I deal with. I'm the archetype of a disabled genius, or should I say a physically challenged genius, to be politically correct. At least I'm obviously physically challenged. Whether I'm a genius is more open to doubt. Hawking was married and divorced twice. His first wife, Jane Wilde, was a fellow student at Cambridge, to whom he was married for 28 years. He then married his nurse, Elaine Mason, whom he was with for 11 years before they separated. He is survived by 3 children from his first marriage, Robert, Timothy, and Lucy. Stephen William Hawking was born January 8th, 1942, in Oxford, England. He had 2 younger sisters and an adopted brother. He developed an early interest in science and mathematics, and when he was old enough, his father, a medical researcher, encouraged him to apply to Oxford. It was while he was there Hawking began his studies in physics and developed an interest in thermodynamics, relativity, and quantum mechanics. Isn't that odd? Very much and very similar to the Reverend Ralph J. Chittams Sr. Great minds apparently thinking alike. After graduating from Oxford, Hawking studied at Cambridge, where he was diagnosed with ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. ALS is a fatal motor neuron disease that causes progressive muscle weakness and atrophy. He later said the diagnosis prompted recurring dreams in which he would sacrifice his own life to save others. After all, if I were going to die anyway, it may as well do some good, he said, but I didn't die. In fact, although there was a cloud hanging over my future, I found to my surprise that I was enjoying life in the present more than ever before. Shortly after earning his Ph.D., Hawking became a professor at Cambridge, working as a research fellow, then a professional fellow, before becoming a Lucasian professor of mathematics. That same position, which he held from 1979 to 2009, was held by Sir Isaac Newton in 1669. Hawking was awarded 12 honorary degrees and was elected one of the youngest fellows of the Royal Society in 1974. He was later made a Commander of the Order of the British Empire in 1982 and a Companion of Honor in 1989. He's also a member of the U.S. National Academy of Science and was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2009. Hawking's research focused on cosmology and the basic laws of the universe. Along with Roger Penrose, he applied a new model to Einstein's general theory of relativity. The model showed that space and time are infinite, and they would begin with the Big Bang and end with black holes. He also concluded that black holes should emit radiation and that the universe has no edge or boundary in imaginary time. Hawking was never afraid to voice his opinion, even if it could be considered controversial. Using a mathematical basis, he said, was almost certain that alien life existed in other parts of the universe. Quote, "The numbers alone make thinking about aliens perfectly rational," he said. "The real challenge is to work out what aliens might actually be like." Stop. Numerically, statistically, I have to completely agree with Professor Hawking. He also took a jab at religion, saying, "I regard the brain as a computer which will stop working when its components fail." Now, sadly, he said this: "There is no heaven or afterlife for broken-down computers. That is a fairy story for people afraid of the dark." In 2007, Hawking became the first quadriplegic to float in zero gravity when he took a flight in a NASA aircraft used to train astronauts. When asked why he was taking the flight, he said, "First of all, I believe that life on Earth is at an ever-increasing risk of being wiped out by a disaster, such as a sudden nuclear war, or genetically engineered virus, or other dangers. I think the human race has no future if it doesn't go into space. I therefore want to encourage public interest in space." Hawking, or his animated lookalike, appeared on numerous television shows, including Star Trek, Next Generation, The Simpsons, Family Guy, and Dilbert. In some instances, he appeared as himself, while in others, animated characters were created to resemble him. In order to communicate, Hawking used a computer system attached to his wheelchair. He used a switch to select words printed on a screen, and as he formed sentences, they were sent to a speech synthesizer. His accent was described as Scandinavian, American, or Scottish. Hawking began using the voice synthesizer in 1985 when he contracted pneumonia and had an emergency tracheotomy. So, the genius, and I think everyone would recognize that, the incredible genius, Stephen Hawking, very famed physicist, just passed away at the age of 76. Got about 15 minutes left before the end of the show, and I remind everyone again that tomorrow night, starting at 8 o'clock Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, the Sackheads Radio Show will be resplendent in all its bulbous glory. Once again, all three members of the Sackheads Radio Show will be there: Sackheads BZ, myself, moi, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads Sean. Thanks again for the dinner tonight, sir. The story that very few people have heard, and I wonder why, isn't getting much play, certainly not by leftists, is this. And where did I have to go to find this story? Righto, once again, I went to the UK Daily Mail, because if you want to find out what's happening in a number of portions of the world, you frequently end up having to go across the pond to various European media sources such as this. And the headline of this reads, "We are not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now. South African Parliament votes to seize white-owned land as experts warn of violent repercussions." Reverend Ralph Chittams, did you hear of that? I'll wager he did. I just ran out of time to address any number of issues with him. White South African farmers to be removed from their land after Parliament vote. The motion for expropriation without compensation passed by a landslide. It was brought about by Julius Malema, who said,
At Canik Firearms, we believe in the power of freedom. Freedom to protect, to defend, and to live confidently. That's why we're proud to introduce the Canik Mete MC9L and MC9LS, precision-engineered pistols designed for today's American. Whether you're carrying concealed or out at the range, the MC9L and MC9LS are built for accuracy, durability, and comfort. These pistols are the perfect blend of performance and dependability, because freedom isn't just a right, it's a responsibility. Canik, superior firearms.
White farmers are criminals. Stop. Why is it that you think that BZ is reading this article? We'll talk about this at the conclusion. White South African farmers will be removed from their land after a landslide vote in Parliament. The country's constitution is now likely to be amended to allow for the confiscation of white-owned land without compensation following a motion brought by radical Marxist opposition leader Julius Malema. It passed by 241 votes for to 83 against after a vote on Tuesday. And the policy was a key factor in new President Cyril Ramaphosa's platform after he took over from Jacob Zuma in February. Mr. Malema said the time for reconciliation is over. Now is the time for justice. We must ensure that we restore the dignity of our people without compensating the criminals who stole our land. Mr. Malema has a long-standing commitment to land confiscation without compensation. In 2016, he told his supporters he was not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now. A 2017 South African government audit found white people owned 72% of farmland. Rural Affairs Minister for the ruling African National Congress Party said the ANC unequivocally supports the principle of land expropriation without compensation. Now we go down here a little bit, and in preparation for this, as you might expect, the persons who are advocating for this are black, and obviously the farmers who are involved in this are clearly white. The one thing I failed to research, perhaps someone in chat can do it because I'm busy doing all sorts of other things on the show right now. But the reason that I bring this up is just when you think that certain crazy shite can't happen, there's an excellent example. Gun confiscation can't happen. It happened in Australia. We won't confiscate guns, say leftists. The articles that we discussed and the conversation that I just had with Reverend Ralph Chittams. So just when you think that things aren't going to get silly, stupid, or fattening, well, this proves they definitely can get silly, stupid, or fattening. And if you want a civil war, it's going to be interesting. Like I said to the people in chat, I got about 10 minutes left. I'm curious what kind of gun laws there might be in South Africa. Because if all of a sudden a given government, decides that, well, don't even say white, let's just say owners, that the government decides that no one should own property anymore. All property should be disseminated to everyone. How would you defend yourself against that? How would you defend yourself against that if, for example, you had no way to defend yourself? In order to ensure that government stays behind its means and can't do something like this, this is a perfect and exquisite example of why the Second Amendment exists in the United States of America. Because just when you say X, fill in the blank, can't happen, before you know it, something like that happens. And so people with a perspective in the past, with an eye on the present and a further eyeball to the future, who have an understanding of history, know that never say never. And as Kurt Schlichter wrote, all the various arguments, and as I indicated about the Second Amendment, just when you think that things like that can't happen in various places, things like that happen in various places. Trust me when I tell you that governments, including your very own U.S. government, and more people are willing to come out and tell you this to their face, including Mark Glaze as he speaks to Tucker Carlson on Fox News. We need outright gun confiscations. With gun confiscations, if something like this were to happen in the United States, how would you defend yourself? That's something you definitely need to consider. Now, everything is not terrible. There's a lot more news, and we're going to have to roll this over onto Thursday, of course, because I'm going to be running out of time. But here's an interesting court piece. U.S. Appeals Court just recently, today, upholds the Texas ban on sanctuary cities. So you remember Governor Abbott had a law signed that indicated that Texas is going to ban sanctuary cities. Well, a federal appeals court has upheld the bulk of the Texas law targeting sanctuary cities that is backed by the Trump administration as part of a crackdown on illegal immigration. The ruling today, Tuesday, well, at least today for me, it's tomorrow for the people on the far right coast. The ruling Tuesday by a 3-judge panel of the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans allows Texas to enforce what critics call the toughest state-level immigration measure in the country. The law allows police officers to ask people during routine stops whether they're in the U.S. legally, and threatens, listen to this, perfect, and threatens sheriffs like Sally Hernandez in Travis County, Texas, and threatens sheriffs with jail time for not cooperating with federal immigration authorities. Republican Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton applauded the ruling with a statement saying, quote, dangerous criminals shouldn't be allowed back into our communities to possibly commit more crimes. While I'm deeply disappointed by the Fifth Circuit's decision, San Antonio will remain a welcoming and compassionate city as we continue to honor the law, including individual civil rights, San Antonio Mayor Ron Nirenberg said. In a news release, the city of San Antonio said it continues to be in compliance with applicable SB 4 restrictions. It said it will work with its co-plaintiffs to outside city council to evaluate the next steps to take. Meaning, of course, leftists, they're not taking that sitting down. Then, of course, we had this today. Donald Trump decided that he was going to fire Rex Tillerson. That is the former Secretary of State. I could never in my most wild fevered dreams, I could never understand just why it was that Donald Trump suspected that Rex Tillerson was going to be a grand Secretary of State. He was not, and he's been replaced. Or as Donald Trump says, you're fired. So Trump fires Tillerson. Now, this is interesting. Reuters... And how the American media maggots craft a story tells you pretty much all you need to know about the thrust or the bent of the story. To wit, Trump fires Tillerson, a moderate, replaces him with hawkish spy chief Pompeo. Hawkish versus moderate. Hawkish versus moderate. U.S. President Donald Trump fired Secretary of State Rex Tillerson on Tuesday after a series of public rifts over policy on North Korea, Russia, and Iran, replacing his chief diplomat with loyalist CIA Director Mike Pompeo. Okay, that's not the only thing that occurred as well. there were some issues that divided Trump and Tillerson, okay? One of them was Russia. Trump critics immediately assumed Tillerson was fired for speaking out of turn by blaming Russia for the poisoning of former, who was that spy, Sergei Skripal and his daughter. But senior administration officials claim Tillerson was asked to step down on Friday, 3 days before he made his comments about Russia. A source close to Mike Pompeo, the nominated CIA director, told CNN he had known he would transition from CIA director to Secretary of State since December. So that's one particular issue where it was disagreed upon. Also, if you remember, Tillerson called Trump a moron and never said that he didn't say that. The stated reason, however, for Tillerson's replacement as Secretary of State is North Korea policy. Trump famously, if you remember, told Tillerson in October that he was wasting his time trying to negotiate with Little Rocket Man. And this was taken at the time that the clearest signal to date that Trump was not happy with Secretary of State Tillerson, and that Tillerson was conducting his own rogue foreign policy, although Trump and Tillerson downplayed it as a sort of a bit of good-natured ribbing. So some of the media pundits took it as an indication that Tillerson was probably going to be on his way out. Tillerson was also seen as undercutting Trump's strategy in Afghanistan in August, after Trump declared that our troops will fight to win, and from now on victory will have a clear definition. Tillerson told the Taliban, "You will not win a battlefield victory. We may not win one, but neither will you." So much more to talk about, and I'll be talking about that on Thursday. Now, I am in the process of some serious contractual negotiations with the High Plains pundit himself, Dan Butcher, to see if he'll be on this coming Thursday night for about an hour to continue a little bit further with what we discussed. Now, the negotiations are such that in the SHR Media Network green room, which is where you wait before you appear here, now I like green M&Ms in the bowl when I appear on Ken McClinton's show. And due to my shameless contract, when I appear on Ken McClinton's show, Ken has been kind enough to only put the green M&Ms in the candy bowl in the green room when BZ is waiting to be on. Now, Dan has a semi-similar request, except he only wants the brown M&Ms in a bowl with one, count them, one red M&M placed perfectly in the center. So we're undergoing some very serious negotiations right now, and it's back and forth. There are veins between our teeth as we're discussing this particular situation. We're going to try to come to an adequate settlement. So Dan may be here on Thursday to continue the discussion with the GOP. And also, I want to talk to Dan about this crazy-ass shit that's stepping off in Austin with regard to all these various bombings. So, depending upon how the contractual negotiations go, Dan may be here on Thursday. Kind of looking forward to it.
Monsieur has unlocked!
Again, don't know where, don't know when. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at bzep, on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net, and or you can send me a hate email like many people do, bz@shrmedia.net. I read them all. Then if I don't like you, I excommunicate you. Promotional consideration by Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also by Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust You Can Trust. I say thank you ever so kindly for listening to us tonight. Thank you to the Reverend Ralph Chittams for being here for the entire first hour. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team with whom I will not be consorting tonight because I have to drive 4 hours tomorrow to Fresno to meet Alan Thomas and do a little dickering with Alan. Folks, thank you for listening. God bless. Take care. Good night.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.
At Century Arms, we're committed to supporting your freedom, your rights, and your way of life. With generations of craftsmanship and innovation, we proudly provide firearms that embody the spirit of liberty. Introducing the new Sharp Brothers MB-47 rifle, designed for precision, built for strength, and ready for anything. Whether you're on the range or defending what matters most, the MB-47 rifle is where generation meets innovation. For more information, visit us at centuryarms.com now.